plan would be for the Cowboys to pull off an upset tonight?
Well, I think offensively, everybody knows what the Dallas Cowboys need to do. They need to run the football. They need to be able to sustain drives, keep the chains moving. Most importantly, keep Drew Brees in that offense on the sideline, because that's the best defense for the Dallas Cowboys in order to keep the score down. But defensively, when I look at the Dallas Cowboys, I feel like they're equipped to give that Saints offense some trouble. I mean, I would liken the Dallas Cowboys defense to the Minnesota Vikings defense. When you look at that front seven and the Minnesota Vikings run defense, and then you look at the Dallas Cowboys run defense, the numbers are damn near identical.
Yeah, very similar.
That's how good the Dallas Cowboys are up front with their front seven. So I think that they can stop the run. And CC, I thought you brought up a great point earlier in the show. There's a misconception about who the New Orleans Saints are offensively just because they have the names Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, Keith Kirkwood, all those. They think that there's a passing outfit. This is not the greatest show on turf. This is an offense that wants you to beat you to sleep. They want to pound you into submission. And so you got to be able to take away that run game and make them one-dimensional. I think the Dallas Cowboys can do that. If they can take a page out of the Minnesota Vikings game plan in Week 8, I think they can keep the score close. Because keep in mind, the Minnesota Vikings were one Adam Thielen fumble in the red zone away from having a double-digit lead at halftime against the New Orleans Saints. That's a different game if it's 20-10 when they're going into the second half. So I think the Dallas Cowboys have the ability to make it that kind of game. It's just that it's got to start with the defensive front seven stopping the run.
And your point about the running game's well taken. Drew Brees, the last 2 years, his efficiency numbers are the best of his career, but his total yardage numbers are way down. This year, last year's touchdown numbers were way down. Why? Because they had a legitimate running game. They also had a legitimate defense, so he wasn't having to throw them back into games throughout the season. Here's my concern for Dallas. I do not think you can beat the New Orleans Saints without forcing negative plays. That has been the problem for teams all year long. The only team to beat them had to score 48 to do it. That was just an offensive shootout to start the season. And the Saints are better than any team I can remember at never having negative plays. Drew Brees, if you consider sacks and turnovers the two worst things a quarterback can do, he has a combined 12 on the season. It's one a game. And compare that to Dak Prescott, who has a combined 47 on the season. So, like, there are going to be drives for the Cowboys that end because the defense takes the ball, or that you are punting because it's 3rd and 18 because you take a sack. That never happens to New Orleans. New Orleans, if you're never taking sacks, you're never in 3rd and long. You are always in 3rd and manageable to a degree, and that is because they're also not a super high penalized team. So that's the problem for Dallas. Can they create swing plays, which no one's been able to do against New Orleans all year long? That's their path to victory. They obviously have to play a clean game.
You can't say in the same, can they do it, which no other team has been able to. This is not the kind of team, this is not a Dallas Cowboy team that is suddenly going to turn into a team that is unrecognizable, right?
Well, they have played in spurts. What you have said, they've done in spurts what you're talking about. So now, can they do it over a course of 60 minutes against the best team in the NFL? That's the way you do it. So now it's about style make fights. So it's about the NFL trying to make someone play a style you want to play and make them play a style they're uncomfortable. With the Saints have done a tremendous job on first down. So if I'm Rod Marinelli, I'm going to be very aggressive on first down. I'm going to blitz more on first down than any game because I'm trying to get into what Nick talked about, into those negative plays. I want them in 2nd and 13. I want them in 3rd and long. And on 3rd down, they're going to have to find someone besides Alvin Kamara. Because on 3rd down, I'm going to double them. So early in downs, I'm going to blitz. 3rd down, I'm doubling Kamara. And listen, when Michael Thomas catches one on you and you got great coverage, you say, hey, you were better than me on that play, and don't get frustrated. Because we have seen people have good coverage against him, and Drew Brees still is going to throw him the ball, and he still comes up with it. Don't get discouraged, but I believe those are things, if you want to win this game for Dallas Cowboys, those are things got to happen tonight.
Yeah, if you're going to create those negative plays, you got to go out there and you got to play fast and you got to be aggressive. And that means that your defense needs to have confidence in what they're doing. And Rod Marinelli said it earlier this week. My job is to make the complex simple so those guys can go out there and play fast. He's going to let those front four hunt. Those guys are going to get after it. So it's really up to the responsibilities of the guys on the back end, the back seven, to have good communication, because one of the things that Sean Payton does really well with his offense is a lot of window dressing. There's a lot of movement, a lot of motion, those types of things, shifts. Yeah, they're trying to get you to think, to slow you down, and that's when Drew Brees has the advantage.
He tries to get defenders to think, but also, Canty, guys like yourself talk about your eyes. He always tries to get your eye placement somewhere where it shouldn't be, and then they run one of the most basic of plays.
Which is how guys run wide open, how undrafted free agents are all of a sudden running wide open. But we've spent the majority of the segment talking about Saints offense, Cowboys defense. Cowboys defense could play a great game, and the Saints still scored 28, 30
points.
Like, listen, the Saints have played 11 games this year. Twice they've been held under 30. So they're getting around, at a minimum, probably 28, and really at a minimum around 31. So if the Cowboys are going to win, they have to score at least 4 touchdowns. You are not beating this year's Saints team 21-17. That game does not exist. So how do the Cowboys score points? Yes, they need Zeke to be great, but they need Zeke to be so good early that the play action is a true threat, that you are actually, that the Saints are committing extra people to stop the run, that you do have Amari in a one-on-one spot, and that Dak can make some throws downfield. Like, the Cowboys have to have some explosive plays, because even if the defense does everything we've outlined here, the Saints will find ways to get 27, 28 points at a minimum. They've done it every week this year.
Chris, what would a win for the Cowboys over a team like the Saints mean for them? So much more than just a notch in the win column.
Well, I think that it would give them some confidence in terms of what they've been doing. They're on a 3-game winning streak, but this would be a true test. If they can get this done, a team that's going to be in the postseason, I think this can give them some momentum as we get closer to January, because every team is trying to figure out exactly who they are this time of year, whether they're a contender or a pretender. I think this would prove to the Dallas Cowboys, those guys in that locker room, that they're for real.
And Canty, we always see November and December, we see a team around 500. They start playing the right way. No matter if they got guys healthy, those backups are now starters, and they've played a few weeks. They start to play good football. And there are things late in the season, those last 5 or 6 games, I've seen the teams that you were on. They triggered you. You got a sense of confidence by you had a win over a team. That's what this could do for the Cowboys. If they're going to have a special season, if they're going to get in the playoffs and potentially try to win that first playoff game that this young group would win, it would come off momentum of a game like this.
It ain't about who's having the best season. It's about who's playing the best this time of year. Because, I mean, that championship team that I was on in 2011, we had to win the last 2 to get in the postseason, and then we were able to go on a run. So I think the Dallas Cowboys have an opportunity for that, just based on how they're built as a football team, because they can run the ball, they can play good defense. Those things translate into success once we get to January.
And one of the reasons the Saints right now are the Super Bowl favorite out of the NFC is because right now things have to go through New Orleans in the NFC. On the flip side, a loss to Dallas, what it means for the Saints is they're chasing after the Rams, who have the second softest remaining schedule of everyone in the league. After this week, the Saints have at Tampa, the one team that's beat them. Tampa's not good. At Carolina, home for the Steelers, home for Carolina. This would be a very tough loss for the Saints as far as getting the #1 overall seed.
Anyone at this table think Dallas can do it?
I do.
I do.
Do you?
Can, sure. Will, no. No, I do not.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah.
There you go. Coming up, has Baker Mayfield finally gone too far?